I've always loved swimming. It clears my head, keeps me grounded, and hey, it beats therapy. So when I bought my house, one of the first upgrades I made was a backyard pool. It wasn't just some cheap above ground splash bucket either. It was gorgeous, tiled, pristine, and honestly one of the best looking features in the whole neighborhood. Since I'm not some Scrooge about it, I used to let some of the neighborhood kids come swim on weekends. Even though it's a private pool, fenced and fully paid for by yours truly, I figured, why not spread the joy a little? That goodwill lasted until I decided to deepen the pool. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. Now, I wasn't just changing the water temperature or buying new floaties. I was renovating the pool, digging deeper, making it sleeker, more professional. I filed all the proper paperwork, submitted the designs to the city, hired licensed contractors, and spent a small fortune making sure everything was done legally and beautifully. The deeper pool wasn't going to be child-friendly anymore. Too dangerous. So I did the responsible thing. I reached out to every parent whose kids had swum before and politely explained the changes. They all appreciated the heads up. Every single one of them said thank you and understood. Well, every single one except Sarah. You know the type. Blonde bob cut, sunglasses permanently glued to her forehead, always in HOA meetings despite not being the president, always trying to act like she runs the neighborhood. She didn't take it well. Her kids were the rowdiest swimmers, cannonballs, screaming, splashing everyone, and yet she was always scrolling her phone, sipping diet soda like a board supervisor at a daycare she didn't even work for. I knew the moment she saw that text, things would go sideways. She left me on read for 3 days, then sent a one-word reply, noted. Cold, condescending, the kind of noted that means war. Still, I brushed it off. The renovations were going smoothly, the other neighbors were respectful, and I figured Sarah would huff and puff and then move on. I had no idea she was just getting started. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments where you're watching this story from. Sarah didn't just take the pool closure personally. She took it as a full-blown insult to her DNA. According to her, I had humiliated her children, singled them out, and disrespected her role in the community. All over a pool. A pool that she didn't pay for, didn't maintain, and couldn't even see from her own yard. Her rage was so irrational it felt like a parody. I didn't ban her kids to be spiteful. I banned them because they were wild, unsupervised, and my pool was no longer built for kids. I even explained that to her twice. But apparently, Logic and Sarah don't swim in the same pool. Her kids were the kind that sprinted on slippery tiles, shoved each other near the edge, and once brought water balloons without asking. I used to keep quiet out of politeness, but now that the pool had a much deeper slope and steeper drop-offs, I wasn't risking a lawsuit or a drowning on my conscience. It wasn't safe, period. Every other parent got it, not Sarah. She was offended that she wasn't the exception. And of course, when Sarah gets offended, she doesn't just complain, she declares war. She sent me a voice note, 2 minutes long, ending with the most pathetic threat I'd heard in months. If my kids can't have fun, neither can you. Like she was casting a villain curse at the end of a Disney movie. I played it twice and laughed harder the second time. But even then, I knew better than to ignore Sarah. People like her don't bark just to hear themselves. They bite too. She started slow, showing up to HOA meetings with concerns about backyard safety, walking her dog past my house 5 times a day, and glaring like she was conducting a perimeter check. I even caught her pretending to take a call right outside my fence, just so she could peek through the slats. She was digging for dirt, any dirt, something she could twist, escalate, and weaponize. But my paperwork was tight, my permits solid, and my property spotless. Sarah couldn't find a single thing wrong, so she started trying to create something wrong. She went full Sarah mode. I swear, the second she realized she couldn't find a real violation, she transformed into a budget version of Sherlock Holmes with a vendetta. Clipboards, phone camera, whispering with other neighbors like I wouldn't notice her peeking from behind bushes. Her desperation was hilarious and honestly a little sad. She tried every typical Karen trick in the playbook. She even went door to door to the parents I'd already spoken with, spinning her narrative like I was some villain who used the neighborhood kids and then threw them away. It was laughable. They didn't buy it. Every single parent she talked to shut her down politely, or in one case, not so politely. I heard one mom say, "Sarah, he's just protecting the kids. You should try that sometime." The look on Sarah's face must have tasted like vinegar. With no one to back her up, she was stuck with just one ally, herself, and that made her dangerous. So she did what every unhinged HOA board member does when the narcissism reaches boiling point. She called the authorities. One random Tuesday afternoon, I was skimming the top of my pool when I saw two uniformed officers approaching my front gate. One carried a tablet, the other had a checklist. Sarah wasn't far behind, standing halfway down the sidewalk pretending to water a plant that wasn't hers. I could practically hear her breathing through her teeth. The officers introduced themselves as City Code Enforcement. Someone, wonder who, had reported my pool as a potential environmental hazard with claims that it was improperly maintained, leaking chemicals, and built without a valid permit. I didn't argue. I didn't say Sarah's name. I just let them inspect everything. They spent an hour measuring, checking drain flow, chlorine levels, filtration systems, runoff paths, you name it. And in the end, it passed. Every single test. By the book. Legit. I thought maybe that would shut Sarah up. It didn't. A week later, another complaint came in. Same nonsense, different wording. That's when I got pissed. I filed a cease and desist, printed no trespassing, recording in progress signs, and nailed them to the gate. Sarah had crossed a line. Just returned from picking up some mulch when I saw Sarah stomping down the sidewalk like she'd just gotten evicted from her own ego. She had a crumpled white envelope in one hand, my cease and desist letter, and a face so red I thought she'd combust. She marched right up to my driveway, didn't even hesitate. My cameras caught everything. "You think this paper scares me?" she screamed, waving the letter like it was a death threat. "You think this is over? I'll ruin you." I stayed inside, arms crossed, sipping iced tea as I watched the security feed on my phone. She was full-on deranged, screeching at my porch, spitting venom at the pool I had every legal right to own. "I hope you drown in your stupid pool," she shrieked, voice cracking, arms flailing like she was performing a demonic interpretive dance. I didn't even flinch. I simply called the cops and told them I had a trespasser screaming threats at my front door. And, unlike the inspection visit, these were different officers, an entirely new pair who clearly had no patience for HOA board dramatics. Two cruisers showed up. One officer, a young black woman with mirrored sunglasses and tactical calm, stepped out first. The second, a burly Latino guy with zero tolerance in his face, followed right behind. They let Sarah scream for another 20 seconds while they reviewed the camera footage I had sent them from my app. Then the female officer turned to Sarah and said, "Ma'am, you are trespassing and issuing verbal threats. You need to leave now." Sarah scoffed. "This is my neighborhood. You should be arresting him. He's the problem." The male officer didn't even blink. "Turn around, ma'am." When she refused, he gave her one last warning before clicking the cuffs over her wrists. Her face crumpled into the ugliest expression I've ever seen, a mix of disbelief, rage, and complete loss of control. She wailed the whole way down my driveway. I waved at her from my ring cam. Full HD, crystal clear humiliation. Her downfall was finally sealed. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Have you had a similar encounter with a Karen or anyone in the HOA board? Let us know in the comments.